There we go. Hey, Mayor, the floor is yours.
Well, good evening, everyone. I'm sorry I was late. I had some professional obligations to try to close out. It's always hard to get off a phone call. It's never too hard to get on. So I had a little both. I thank everyone for joining the call today with us. I guess, Ben, you've already introduced yourself, but I wanted to take a second just to welcome everybody and talk a little bit about what we're about to kind of endeavor. This would be our third time applying for the DRI grant, and our folks at LaBerge will explain, along with our CDA Commissioner, Danielle Oglesby, who's on, I see, exactly what that entails. But given everything the successes that we've had in the village over the last 3 years, we've been encouraged by New York State to apply for the DRI grant. So that's what brings you to the call today. You may have heard through different avenues that we've been successful in getting. To date, it's got to be close to about $100 million in grant monies for various projects in and around the village. I think we're pretty close to being awarded, hopefully, knock wood, monies for the removal of the 1,4-dioxane from our water and the complete new water plant. And we got our fingers crossed on that one, and that's about a $53 million grant. So with everything that's going on in the village of Hempstead, the state has encouraged us to apply for the DRI grant, and that's what brings us here today. So you'll learn about the DRI process today, but we really want to hear from everyone about, what we're trying to do in terms of our downtown initiatives. And we just have tremendous amount of momentum, and we want to keep that momentum going forward. So I just wanted to say hi. I'm going to put myself on mute. I didn't have a well thought out kind of opening salvo for this, but I just feel really good. And I want to say one other thing, and that is this is our third time doing this again. This is also our third time using the team at LaBerge, and all of our successes, everything that we've been successful in doing and getting all this grant money down has all come through LaBerge, through a partnership with the Village of Hempstead and with LaBerge. And so we're not married to them in any kind of way, but it's been a very strong working relationship, and we really value that relationship. That's why you see those folks with us on this call and others. They're very collaborative and interactive. They seem to like us too, and hopefully it's not just because of the business relationship. They really have taken a liking to the Village of Hempstead and all the different moving parts and people and trying to do the right thing. So let's be cognizant of that there is a relationship here that is positive. So when we talk to each other, let's talk in a positive nature, right? Let's bring that to the table, that we're not just talking to someone who's coming from the outside. Like, they've been with us for 3 years, and like I said, we're pretty close to the $100 million mark in terms of funding that we've worked with those folks. Somebody needs to mute. So let's go forth and bring positive ideas to the table and thoughts as we move through this process, because something tells me that we're going to win. So let's do the best we can to make some headway here. This will be the first of, I think, a couple of more meetings that are similar in nature. But I'm really thankful that so many people are on today, and I'll stop blabbering now and turn it back to Ben.
Thank you, sir. And yes, we've had a great relationship the last 3 years working with the village. We work with communities all over the state, but rarely do we find a community as poised for progress as you are here. Your leadership, your committees, your community, your nonprofits, your private companies are all in sync towards a brighter future for the village. I myself was born over in Mercy Hospital, so I was only there for a few hours, a couple of days, but I am from Long Island, and my family was from West Hempstead, so I have a little bit of a tie to the community and to the region. But our experience working with this village has been nothing but positive over the last 3 or 4 years. But while we haven't been successful in the past 2 years, we believe this is your best opportunity because really Hempstead is on the move. So when developing a downtown revitalization initiative theme and topic, we really want to continue focusing on what has been identified as your downtown location in the last two applications with the state and with the community, and not start from scratch. So we're having this community conversation, and we're calling it HEART, the heart of Hempstead, Hempstead empowering and rising together. And we're doing that to be really collaborative with your organizations and your nonprofits, your academic institutions, and your private businesses, and harnessing the power of Hempstead and showing why you're special and why you should be requesting that the state invest $10 million in your community and what you can do with that $10 million to transform the heart of the community. What we want to go over today, first off, can everybody see my screen, the presentation screen? I always ask that because the last time I gave a presentation,
Yes.
only I
Yes.
saw it. Thank you.
Yes, we can see it.
So what we want to go over today is a brief overview of the DRI, talk about the application history and expand upon what the deputy mayor just mentioned, focus a little bit about why now and why Hempstead, inform you about the project selection criteria for how New York State selects the one DRI winner per region, talk about the project types, and then go right into what we've done in the past and build upon that. I want to really focus on the fact that you have set the foundation already. There have been a number of transformative projects that have been recommended through the public outreach process in 22 and 23, a number of projects that came out of the BOA, the Brownfield Opportunity Area, discussion points out of the focus groups and the steering committee, and we're harnessing that and building upon those projects. So we'll review 10 that have come up so far, and then we really want to ask you as the community stakeholders, what else we should be thinking about to better position the village for securing those funds. We mentioned before, and I'll mention it again, the DRI is a $10 million award. Each year for the last 12 years, New York State has awarded $10 million per region, so $100 million in the state. Your region is Long Island, Nassau and Suffolk County. So one community in the entire Long Island will secure $10 million of investment. And that investment is meant to springboard another $100 million of investment in your community. The goal is that this little bit of funding from the state, I say little bit, $10 million is nothing to shake a stick at. But the goal is that that $10 million will invest and stimulate investment in the private, nonprofit, and governmental areas to springboard that 10 million into $100 million of investment. So when we talk about HEART, we have the HEART. We talk about housing, education, arts and culture, recreation, and transportation in this hub, in this boundary that we're going to show you in a little while. And we want to use that $10 million there to stimulate $100 million in those topical areas. I mentioned a little bit ago that this has happened all over New York State. There's $10 million going to each region, but in order to secure that, you have to be able to demonstrate your readiness as a community to apply, to work with the state steering committee and the state strategic investment planning process, and to collectively achieve this vision for what you want to see in your downtown. This is a locally driven process at the state level where they're going to provide resources to the community to develop and further develop the projects that you will present back to the state for selection. As the Long Island Regional Economic Development Council and the governor decide which community is going to secure those $10 million, who will get that award, there are some fundamental goals that you should think about that guide the process as we're thinking about projects to put forth for Hempstead. Number one is you have to be a certified pro-housing community. When Deputy Mayor mentioned that they were encouraged to apply, there's only 11 communities in this entire Long Island that are already certified. You're one of them, one of three in Nassau County. What the state goal is trying to do, what they're trying to create for you, is an active, desirable, walkable downtown, one that's reactivated, reimagined, re-engaged, one that has economic opportunity, housing availability, that's walkable and safe, one that can be an attractor for visitors as well as a server to the neighborhoods that currently are there. The goal is to help the residents that already exist, promote as opportunity for development, bring in the tourism dollars, and capture the market whilst having the entire community rise from the central location up. And that's what the DRI is really about, investing in downtown revitalization, not just visioning, but finding those transformative projects that, when completed with state funding and local funding, really change for the better the conditions in the community. They want to grow the local tax base and provide housing opportunities. As the deputy mayor mentioned before, in 2021, you applied, you were not successful, but downtown Amityville and Riverhead secured the funding that year. In 2021, they gave out 2 awards because in 2020, COVID happened and they gave out none. So there were 2 awards in 21. In 2022, you applied but didn't win because you hadn't spent an old $5 million wastewater grant that you weren't able to spend due to the requirements on the program. And that year it was awarded to Huntington Station. Last year, you did not apply at all because you're still working with the state to release the initial $5 million on wastewater funding. Last year, the DRI was awarded to Smithtown. All these are Suffolk County awards. So why this year? Why now? What makes this year any different? Well, one is you're a pro-housing community, only 1 of 3 in the county. And we believe that Nassau County is primed and ready to win that $10 million. But as the deputy mayor mentioned, you've had so much success in the last few years. And some of these are on this paper right now. $20 million in wastewater funding for sewer, $3 million a few weeks ago to help tear down and demolish the parking garage in Cooper block. Another $9.9 million for the Kennedy swimming pool right nearby. Last year, you were awarded funding of $3 million for the Conifer redevelopment project, and $38 million for phase 1 water has just been applied for. You have already been listed above the funding line, so waiting for the final award letter to come imminently. The village worked with NIMTEC and NTA to do the first mile, last mile study for pedestrian safety in and around the Rosa Parks Transit Center. You've been designated a BOA community, which is Brownfield Opportunity Area, which opens up additional resources for reclaiming vacant lands and properties. Estella, the $150 million investment in affordable housing, is underway, which includes the Campari Foods grocery store in that general vicinity for the 2 different developments, Carmen Place and Estella. And the village is already moving forward on redevelopment plans for Michelle Park and a recreation community center. So a lot is happening here. When we talk about communities across the state moving forward a little bit, they have 1 fraction of the momentum that Hempstead has right now. So we're trying to build upon that momentum with Long Island Regional Economic Development Council to secure the funds here. But I mentioned before that this is not happening in a vacuum. The deputy mayor mentioned that this has been a long-standing process. We're building on the prior submissions and the feedback provided by the state. This is not happening without their feedback. We understand what they wanted. We're building on the socioeconomic and market analyses that were done. And we're still gleaning those insights and public engagement to find the projects that best highlight the promise and the future of this program here in the village. I want to be clear with one thing on the process, by the way. When we develop an application that highlights potential transformative projects, those are not necessarily the final projects that the state's going to include in their review. It's what we're trying to do here is showcase what is happening in the community and what is on the drawing board, so to speak, for transformation. But it's still going to be a part 2 of the process next year upon award. But we'll go over that later on in the presentation. I did want to bring up a little word cloud from our last set of public meetings that we had. A word cloud is a tool that we use to identify those words that come up the most in the conversations and the inputs on the surveys. And people are looking to build upon diversity, financial opportunities, bring in visitors out of the train station and bus station. They want to increase public safety, housing and employment opportunities, and they really want to focus on equity, walkability, and quality of life in the downtown. So we use a lot of that word cloud to help identify potential projects that we're going to put forth here for the village of Hempstead. The DRI project area changed slightly from the last application in 23. It now includes the Long Island Railroad Station, the Rosa Parks Transit Station, and the improvements along Kellam Place and Main Street, because the governor's goals have been to increase housing opportunities, to increase transit-oriented development, to increase connections to transit in Main Street revitalization. Last year, we ended it at Jackson Street, right at the entry point, but now we want to capture the other investments that are happening in and around the train station to again meet the governor's goals and the state's goals in economic redevelopment, housing opportunities, and the like. Just for those of you that are watching online or those that will be watching this later, some points of note in the target area are Denton Green, the train station, the Village Hall, the African American Museums over here, and the Episcopal Church is in the lower part by Cooper Street and the Cooper Block. This is just so that those that are watching and not familiar with the target area can put a little locational sense of where the boundaries are. So to move forward, what we're going to do is discuss in brief the transformative projects that were put forth in the past, and then we're going to open it up to questions and answers and your input as to what is going to move forward and what cannot move forward. There's a question on Terrace Avenue. Right now, we're stopping it. The target area, so the target area, just so you know, has been shaped by the state. They wanted to be within a 5-minute walking from the top to bottom, east and west. We had originally a larger target area that included Terrace, North Franklin, up to the Garden City border, even over on the other side of Cooper Street. But the state had asked us, in Clinton Street, the state had asked us over the last 2 rounds to shrink the boundary down to a smaller boundary area. I want to be clear that in the process of the award, once you're awarded the funds, you go through a planning process to develop what's called the strategic investment plan. Not to have a play on words, but it really is a plan for how the governor and the state can strategically invest their monies. During that process of the first 3 meetings, you're able to expand and morph your boundary. So this boundary is by no means the final boundary. Terrace Avenue, Rochelle Park area, Bedell, going east a little bit, that can all be expanded upon during the planning process. But for the application, the state had asked us originally to shrink the target area down. So that's why we have a smaller target area here. When thinking about the transformational projects, I just want to let you know what 4 categories the state allows us to have projects in. One of them is public improvement projects, which are streetscape, transportation, parks, plazas, public art, gateway infrastructure projects, green infrastructure projects. They're public and they require no local match. It's just the state can do the project, or if you need to, you have a local match. Yes, Juan, it'll be available. I'm trying to look at some of the questions as they come in as I go forward. New development or rehabilitation of downtown buildings. They're all, those are all eligible projects. A small project fund, a downtown investment fund, is an eligible project where you can do smaller projects, facades, awnings, interior fit up, HVAC. If you have working capital needs, for example, for we had a refrigeration unit for a bakery, that's all in a small project fund. And finally, branding and marketing. These are the 4 categories that projects have to fall under. And I wanted to share that with you as we move forward on the discussion. What's not eligible is any pre-award costs, property acquisition, training, planning, operations and maintenance, or expenses related to existing grant programs that you're already doing. So it's really for public projects, new private development, which can also be done by nonprofits, can be done by academic institutions, small projects for mom and pop shops, startup businesses and the like, or marketing and branding. So I just flew onto this. I'm sorry for getting a little dizzy. So the first project that came up in the last 2 rounds that was important to the community was placemaking and wayfinding. We left it this way, but we're looking at splitting this into 2 projects. Having worked with the state New York Forward and Downtown Revitalization Initiative the last few years, they like to see wayfinding, branding, welcoming centers or kiosks as a separate project from streetscape improvements and placemaking. So we're recommending that we split this down into two pieces. This is really to invigorate the look and feel of your downtown, lights, green space, complete street treatments and the like. But the wayfinding and branding is to let people know where everything is as you're redesigning and redeveloping the opportunities for economic development for new businesses and the like. And that is supposed to be set up so that you can you look at kiosks, tie it to what's happening in the community, see where you're going, and direct people from the train station and transit center in. What we're going to do is I have Scott and Scott, you guys are going to jump in on each individual slide. And then when we're done with these slides, then we'll open up the questions and then I'll get to the chat box as well. So keep putting your information and questions in the chat box and I'll get to those during the public comment. Scott?
Yep. So on the second project, one of the key anchor projects would be the revitalization of 100 Main Street. Really looking for a pathway to opportunities here for local small businesses, small restaurants, maybe some residents that are working out of their home with small businesses, looking to use this large open space to provide kind of a commercial kitchen incubator that would allow a number of different restaurants or food types to take up small space and serve food. Also looking to establish the possibility of some small storefronts. People maybe have some small online businesses or working out of their house and give them the opportunity to temporarily utilize the space to bring their stores in and work to capture some of that foot traffic. Really kind of an open market. There's also the possibility of partnering with Nassau Community College culinary program and looking at having a food incubator or catering program through there. We're utilizing the students to run their own little small business in this space.
Hey there, good evening, everyone. So number three here, the Downtown Investment Fund. Essentially what this represents, has been alluded to a few slides ago, is a portion of the funds dedicated to specific investment into individual downtown businesses. What that means is the facade improvements, perhaps some necessary foundational structural improvements if needed, as well as maybe some equipment that could be used in order to keep these businesses vital and open. In some cases, there could be, some money or funding leverage perhaps to relocate businesses that currently exist anywhere but could thrive in a downtown area. Thereby, hopefully bringing more people to the area, and also creating an atmosphere for, more workforce development and employment opportunities within there.
I did want to mention that there was a question about how is this going to be funded as we go through these projects. Private projects are required to have a minimum of a 25% match by the state, and then the state will give you funding towards meeting your project. But they're going to be part of the process also is to link these projects with additional state funding. So for example, if you're doing a $4 million project or you want to invest in a $4 million project and you apply for $500,000 or $1 million out of the program, the state will be working with you to identify additional resources to leverage the state money here. So it's not all on you and it's not on the village. The only village resources that go into any project will be village projects, public projects. The private projects are private investments coupled with the state, or leverage with the state. And the entire process here is to help local businesses grow. Your downtown investment fund are for the small businesses that are going to grow, that are either existing in the heart of downtown or want to locate here in the heart of downtown. The RDUA is looking at working with the village to create mixed housing units in the old parking lot on Cooper Boulevard, Cooper Street. You have the parking garage that has to be torn down that we've secured $3 million for already. There's a $7 million request in the federal budget. Hopefully we'll have a federal budget. Right now, it looks like maybe continuing resolution will occur and we may not have a federal budget for 3 or 6 more months. But this is to open up 5 stories of multifamily housing for young professionals, for empty nesters, college students, and current village residents. It's mixed income. It's also mixed use for first floor retail. It's also taking empty parking lot space and converting it to leasable space in your downtown.
The Denton Green proposed project is looking at reestablishing the historic Village Green as the centerpiece of downtown. We look to add some new amenities, including new kiosks to tell the history and the story of Denton Green in the area, and looking at adding more recreational and public use facilities that have the option under the circumstances to be open during the day, possibly during the week, and people can enjoy them um, more frequently.
Yeah, so complete streets and traffic calming. I saw there was a comment a short time ago in there referring to how, some of these projects may affect traffic within the village. So clearly that is a hot topic, and something that has been talked about extensively with, the preliminary project teams and the steering committees. Um, so yeah, one of the things that obviously we want to fit into this project is complete streets and traffic calming, pedestrian safety improvements, better infrastructure for getting around, with and without cars, hopefully from a vehicle standpoint, improving traffic flow throughout the downtown area and extending into, the surrounding parts of the village there. Um, as well as, better lighting improvements and safety enhancements, ADA accessible enhancements, to make that entire area far more appealing, for pedestrians, bicyclists, ride shares, and the like.
A project that came out of the conversations with the steering committee is how to best utilize the Hempstead Bank, which is an amazing architectural structure in your target area. The discussion of the need of a community performing arts center has been coming up, an arts incubator, the artist lofts, ways to increase arts and culture in your downtown, both for current organizations and for residents to come and for neighbors and visitors to come off the train station into your downtown and use the services you have here. Stakeholders always have been saying to us in the last 3 years that arts and culture is a kingpin to what we want to do here. It's a foundational strength of our community, and we want to continue to support arts and culture here in the downtown. So we look at this building as an opportunity. Again, just so everyone understands, these are just potential projects. As they go through the planning process, some things will change, some things will morph. This may end up being a different use of this building altogether. What we're trying to do here is showcase an opportunity, what can happen in this building, and what can happen in your downtown. The concept here is, though, is to get some funding in to incentivize arts and culture to have a place to hold in your downtown, whether it's a theater, whether it's an open space for changing performing arts, whether it's different groups coming in and using it. It's really to hold and help arts grow in your downtown and provide a unique character to the downtown area. With that can also be cafes and workspaces, galleries, and the like.
Proposed uses are all from the committees and the local conversations that we've had for reuse of these buildings. And here, the Woolworths building is another large key strategic commercial redevelopment. The village will look to secure an anchor tenant to support private offices, smaller storefronts, the new concept of shared workspace with open space for small businesses to utilize and lease or rent short-term and long-term. So they don't have to have monthly office rent if they have meetings or established business connections. So this is another large open space that the village is looking to use as an anchor for business development.
What I love about this building, by the way, is it has two street fronts. Both sides of the building are open and are available for redevelopment. This building is looked at as an incubator, one that can help small businesses grow. We can tie into the academic institutions for the business programming, the management programming, whether it's Hofstra, whether it's Malloy or Adelphi, Nassau Community College, tying the students into the community as well as helping community businesses grow. The Chamber of Commerce has identified a need for storefronts for small businesses. This is a great opportunity. This building has been vacant for a number of years. It's a large property, and there's so many opportunities for anchor tenants and rehabilitation objectives in the former Woolworth building.
So this is an exciting one here, the dining and entertainment corridor. And I see also again, once again in the comments, somebody had literally just mentioned perhaps a movie theater, bowling alleys, things of that nature. The dining and entertainment corridor, very, very unique proposal, carving out a section of the downtown area to specifically attract certain types of businesses, maybe some late night opportunities, certainly more employment, but more so a place where everybody can gather, a place for everyone. Lots to do, places to eat, entertainment venues, a place for people of all ages and abilities, students perhaps. There's already proposal on the table, my understanding, for possibly mixed use housing units, residential units, perhaps for, some set aside for the college community. And I mean, the sky is kind of the limit here. I could go on a long time about the possibilities, but I think a lot of that will come up later on down the road during the strategic planning process. So I don't want to beat that too much, but certainly very, very, very exciting and a lot of opportunity with this one.
Also, it's in conversations with some of the colleges, it was noted that there is no real college town in Nassau County. And since you have 4 colleges, is if there's a way that we can start bringing the investment from the students from the colleges into your downtown with retail, with entertainment, with shopping, with restaurants, it's really a boon to the community and an opportunity to harness some of that tourism and dollars spent in your own community while giving opportunities for jobs and growth right here. Housing is always a need, so the development opportunity, how it ends up is completely different. But what we're trying to give is an opportunity here for a transformative project in the heart of downtown. Along those lines, we're trying to utilize the empty parking lots with additional commercial development and stacked parking, so people have the opportunity to grow their businesses here. Part and parcel to the village's vision is to provide opportunities for workforce training, to utilize the Workforce Investment Board, the community colleges, the Chamber of Commerce programming, to provide the job training that's necessary for your own residents to have these jobs that are coming into the community. So part of the process here is just simply the conversation that we can have with you all as to what else can we showcase, what is on the drawing boards in your own organizations, in your own nonprofits, in your own communities that you would like to see happen here. What can we tie down as a potential transformative project? And this isn't the be all and end all. What I mean by that is the process is going to continue on. Should you be selected as the DRI recipient, there'll be a state-run process for about 9 months where there'll be an open call for projects. So just because ideas aren't given today, last week, online in the survey, doesn't mean they're not going to be reopened again. When you go through the planning process, the 2nd month and the 3rd month is what's called an open call. Anybody with an idea of what they want to do, investors, property owners, nonprofits, organizations, can submit an idea and work with the consultant team to further develop that and work together with funding streams, with banks, with nonprofit lenders to make that project competitive to go forward in the process for the state review. So I just don't want you to think that today is the only opportunity you have. If we are successful in securing the funds in January, there'll be a 9-month process commencing in April. So they have a second bite of that apple, so to speak. And some of the projects that we're talking about today may not make that plan, and some new ones may come on in. So what we want to do is get your help again in identifying public projects that we should be thinking about in the target area. Is it a welcome center? Is it something else happening that we should be doing? New development opportunities that you have in your minds that we should be thinking about for inclusion in this plan? And is there a theme or a marketing brand you'd like us to consider as a community put forth in the application? For example, what's come out so far is the potential relocation of the village hall. So you open up that area for redevelopment. Other vacant properties in that square, like the old Helen Keller building next door to Woolworths, those properties that can be redeveloped. Continuing to identify opportunities for upstairs housing, and downstairs retail. Looking at additional parking structures by the train station, possibly a welcome center at the transit center that can be pulled in. Also, a clock tower came up by the public already. So we wanted your thoughts, and we can raise our hands and with the little buttons or your actual hand and get your input going forward so that we can get transformational projects from your minds as we move forward. So with that, I'll open it up. If you raise your hand, one of us, we can call you out. I have 2 pages here to pull through. So I want to be able to see who wants to start. Jocelyn, you said, could there be green space development closer to the bus? Yes, there could be. There's a parking lot right next to the village hall. That if the village hall moved, that whole area is an opportunity for redevelopment.
Yeah, because you mentioned like the Danton Park, that's usually closed. So
Correct.
would that wouldn't be the case if it's like worked on, or would it still be the case?
My understanding is that there are some requirements for closure due to the historical nature of the park.
Yeah.
But through proper design and through time limits, we may be able to open up more of the area for special events and for either nighttime activities, the movies and the like. But the goal is to open up as much of that park as we can while simultaneously finding other areas in the target area to provide recreational opportunities and open space. We recognize there's very little open space there at all. And the little pocket park is one thing, but the opportunity to work with the village and the developers to identify more recreational opportunities, part and parcel to the public improvement part of a DRI.
Yeah, because my thought process is like if there's more green space around there because of the court system, the transit and all of that, like people want to, during the summer or spring or fall, like they want to walk a little bit around, or that's also improvement for the businesses because they get to walk around and see what's around them, the options that are available, and just engage in the village. So that's why I was saying more in the center of by the transit. Just that was my thought process of it.
Sure. So when we're a state contractor for New York Forward for the Mohawk Valley. So we work with the communities once you're awarded. We're not the ones on Long Island. We have a different region. And in that community process, we have visioning meetings and workshops and discussions just like this. How do we reactivate land for recreation? Where can that be? Then our job will be to design how that looks conceptually. And then if the governor and her team pick that project, then it goes forward in full design. So this is absolutely part of this discussion. And if you're awarded the funds, there's a lot more in-depth conversation about redevelopment opportunities, recreation opportunities, reactivating the public realm and public space. You have a lot going on, especially if you're adding more residential units. They need an area to recreate as well. So that's very good. Thank you for bringing that up.
I also wanted to ask, like, even if maybe thinking like if that wouldn't be an option, like a recreation center or something that like invites like sort of like a visitor center for those, like even for commuters that have to wait a long time or learn like maybe the history of the village of Hempstead or something that, like a waiting room type of area.
That came up on Friday also, a welcome center concept. I'm not sure if using a prime property would be useful, but if there's something we can do at the transit center as a welcoming center or right nearby or on other properties. But yes, definitely. Now, LIRR will never say there's a long wait. It's always a perfect seamless transition, right, guys?
Yeah, and even like let's say that, well, I'm believing that we will get approved for this, right? Does like the
I hope so.
MTA, yes. Will they work on upgrading their area as well, like the LIRR and like how the view of the bus transit as well? Is that something that can be in discussion with them, in upgrading that area?
Possibly. I'm not sure if, so I don't think DRI funding can go to the MTA and the LIRR to upgrade theirs, but they're contributing members of this process. Remember, this money is meant to be just a springboard for investment. So hopefully they'd come in as a project partner and say, hey, a lot of really good things are happening here in Hempstead. We got $10 million here. We have all the money going else. We have all the investors. We have the community. Say, we're ready to really be a showcase for Nassau County. They may come to the bat and say, I want to be part of that as a partner in progress. That's all part of the discussion, not part of the application, but part of the discussion. Another question or comment. I don't know, LaShawn, your video is coming up. I'm not sure if that's because you want to share something or just because you turned that on. Ms. Lukes? We can't hear you. Okay, is there somebody else that wants to raise their hand and start? Are there any thoughts or concepts of what we're missing so far? Or I see some comments in the chat box. Yes, we can add more streets down the road, but that'd be part of the planning process. So as I mentioned early on in the conversation, this district or this boundary was set because the state had wanted a smaller boundary than we originally put forth in 2022. But if you're successful, the first thing that happens is the initial LPC local planning committee meeting discusses the boundary. And at that point, they have the ability there to expand it. Then when they do an open call for projects, if there are projects outside the boundary within reasonable distance of the main boundary, they can expand it by a block or two each way. This is supposed to be a walkable downtown, so you're not going to go from Garden City border into your walkable downtown. But if there's something on the fringe, whether it goes at Terrace or Marshall Park or goes east towards Kennedy or back over to Clinton, these are all areas that if there are transformative projects that the LPC local planning committee wants to add in, they can add it in the first 3 meetings.
Better question. I'm sorry. From the last 2 applications, what is new with this application that we're adding on from the last? What's the difference? Besides the area that you mentioned.
The area, the investment, the jobs investment, the potentially the public investment in the area. One of the key parts of the process is, you're asking us not for a handout, but for a handshake. Us being the state, not them. The state saying to you, don't come to me with a handout. Come to me with a handshake. So what are you doing? How are you investing? And what's happening in your community? So what's happened in the last 3 years, to go back to that slide of all the investment and the grants that you've secured in water, in wastewater, in park redevelopment funds, what you're doing to tear down that parking garage that's an impediment and danger to rebuild, what you're doing on housing opportunities on the drawing board already and what's currently being built by Estella and Carmen Place, the work that's happening north of the train station on Main and Kellam for parking structures, as well as hundreds of units of housing opportunity, what's happening next to the train station. The plans for Cooper Block are being further developed. So these are all things that are happening and occurring that are different than the past. And the other piece is still the most important piece, is that you're meeting the governor's goals on transit-oriented development and that you are a pro-housing certified community. For those of you that don't know what that means, for a couple of years now, New York State leadership has recognized the need for additional housing units statewide. Primarily in areas and communities around train stations on the lower part of our state, meaning basically Westchester down south to Long Island, have different needs than the suburban areas in upstate New York. While the New York State has tried to attach housing goals to the state budget, they've been unsuccessful. So New York State turned there a different way. They've created a program called Pro Housing Community. And if you are a certified pro housing community, meaning you have dedicated your goals towards increasing housing opportunity, both the availability and in pricing for the community, then you have the certification. Only if you're certified can you even apply. So now there's a so much smaller amount of people applying for these dollars. Again, Hempstead has done an incredible amount of effort and job securing funding and partnerships moving forward. They're not one saying, give me as a handout. They're saying, I want to be a project partner with the states, with the state programs, with private investors, with redevelopers. And you are, if you were doing a marketing piece for a real estate developer and you put here where academic institutions are, where government institutions are, where recreational opportunities are, where transit is on this little image, and then put a dot in the middle, that's the village of Hempstead. You're the busiest railroad station. You have the transit center with the bus stations. You're within miles north and south of waterways. You have recreational opportunities with state parks, village parks, county parks, Nassau Coliseum. You have academic institutions here with, I mentioned, Hofstra and Malloy, Adelphi and Nassau Community College. You have so much going for you. You need that springboard, and that's what you have here. Did that answer your question, Jocelyn?
Yes, appreciate you taking that time to explain that.
I love these kind of meetings because I never know what kind of questions I'm going to get. What other questions do we have or comments? Claudia, you look like you're about to say something. Okay,
No, I wasn't. I was just, I like everything you're saying. It makes a lot of sense. So, but no question.
Okay. So you just got closer to the camera. Bill, you were the first person on with the opening his camera, so I'm just going to call on you. Mr. Miller, what are your thoughts so far? You got to turn on your speaker.
Can you hear me?
Yep, now I can.
Okay. No, actually, this is a very exciting project. I mean, looking at the downtown and trying to revitalize Hempstead and the downtown area is fantastic. So long overdue. It's one of those things. I'm the kind of guy that needs to digest things in more detail. So I want to see more of that map that you've outlined earlier in the presentation as some kind of documentation, and maybe, Deputy Mayor, you might have a copy of that you can share with people. But it'd be nice to see that.
Yeah, I'm going to
have it in my hand.
It's okay, Bill. I'm going to put in the chat box the website. If you go to the village's website, it'll link to it. We created a website real quick for the project. So I'm going to put it in here. It's lebergegroup.com/Hempstead 2024, I believe. I'm going to switch my screen real quick and make sure that's actually what it is. So this is a real-time experiment. Yep. So if you go to that website, the boundary map will be there. This is due obviously in 3 weeks. So these are all just conceptual projects to show the investment that's happening here and can potentially happen here. But if you go to that website, there's a survey, both in English and Spanish. There's a map there. We're going to be putting the PowerPoint up there as well, so you can see what we're talking about as potential projects. Nothing here is actually cut in stone, except that an application has to be submitted on 3 o'clock on October 18th. That's the only thing cut in stone.
Right.
If you're selected, basically what they're saying is we're showcasing why Hempstead, why now, and what's happening here. What are my potential projects? From that point, if you are selected, the state's saying, hey, we believe in you. We believe you're the next hot topic for revitalization, that you're ready, that you have enough of a community support, that you have enough of a catalog, if you may, of projects ready to move forward. Let's start planning. What that means. Did someone say something?
Yes, I did.
Yes, sir.
So what would that welcoming center look like? It would be a part of the downtown transit center, or would it be around the transit center, or would it be a project built together?
Oh, I have no idea right now, sir. It came up Friday at our steering committee meeting that having a welcome center could be a welcoming part of this process. So I'm not sure if it's going to be at the transit center. I'm not sure if it's going to be a freestanding building. We've been toying back and forth if we want to make it as a separate potential project or tie in kiosks to wayfinding and branding. What we're thinking about doing is both, adding kiosks to your wayfinding and branding section of a project and add a potential project as a freestanding welcome center. I'm just careful. I wouldn't want to take away a developable property as a welcoming center. I'd rather see it in concert with the transit center and the LIRR. So when you're coming off of the buses or off of the train, you can hit the visitor center, learn more about Hempstead, both its history, its location, and its opportunities for attractions.
I have a question. Last time we mentioned that the 98 Main Street is not really being occupied inside. Is that, and it could be like a market inside or anything like that. Can it be connected, maybe like a bridge to the transit? Instead of recreating or creating a new building for like a visitor center, can that be like a visitor center?
I don't see why not. That
Good
would
evening.
come out in the developer's plans or the village's plans for the project as the project goes forward. So if you're selected, then you have the open call for projects. That's where the projects get developed further. That's where you do designs, we do concepts, you do cost estimates, you have better renderings. That's where you develop the project that you finally put forth to the state for their decision. Ms.
Okay,
James.
I have a couple of questions. A couple of them that I placed in the chat. My name is Miss James. As along the way of this particular process, how can community members, residents, be involved in the actual final preparation and fine tuning, of the project?
Of the application or the actual projects?
Both.
Well, the application's due in a few weeks, so there's an online survey that people can submit their information or their comments on. Again, both in English and Spanish. So if you go to that website that I put in the chat box that's linked to the villages, that's where we get input from the community. If you're selected, then it's a very, very public process over 9 months. So you'll have 6 local planning committee meetings. You'll have minimum of 2 public visioning meetings, 2 pop-up meetings at village activities or events and festivals, an online survey there as well, and a public vetting of the projects. From the public vetting of the projects, the steering committee, the local planning committee, at that point will have to create what they call a slate of priority projects that gets submitted with the strategic investment plan to the governor. And then of that slate, the governor picks where she wants to put, I say she, but the government headed by the governor will put their $10 million. Right. What we're doing now is trying to put forth a good showing as to why Hempstead, why now, what's happening,
Okay.
what are my potential projects. And I've learned this over the last few years. I used to think that what you apply for is what wins. No, what you're applying for is to win the $10 million. And then you're initiating a public process. And then I'm going to explain in a couple more slides in a little more detail. And
Okay.
that's where the projects come to fruition, are molded, are crafted. That's where the buy-in comes from the investors. That's either doing the project or the community project or the village. That's where that's where the rubber hits the road. And then
Okay.
from that strategic investment plan, that slate of projects that's in it, the governor will pick what she wants to fund. And you always put in double the amount. So if you're at that point,
Yes.
you'll show $20 million of project requests, knowing that only 10 million can win. And at that point, where the consultant team will identify what else you can go for to leverage that money. Because what we want to do in the strategic investment plan is create what's called a funding quilt. Well, it's not called, we call it a funding quilt. Patchworks of different pieces of funding that make the totality of your project realistic. And while in doing that, potential investors, local investors that want to open up a business or move from their home-based occupation into this location may only need $75,000 out of a small project fund to make that work, or they may have a much larger project and request. That's what happens in that process.
Along those lines, the last couple of applications, you'll see a couple of the projects were funded through under other funding sources since those applications went in through Restore New York. 2 projects that were in the previous applications have been funded since through other funding mechanisms.
I'll give you an example of what I mean by the funding quilt. We were talking to a property owner in a village in the Mohawk Valley whose buildings had burned down and left a 3-building hole in their downtown. And they came into us asking for $4 million out of a $4.5 million opportunity. I said, sir, the village and the state can't fund just your project. And he said, but I need it. And I said, well, let's take a look at what you have. And in that $4 million, he's going to end up requesting $1 million, going to Restore New York for another $2 million, and going to the Pro Housing Community Infrastructure Grant for $1 million. And then he'll put in his own. So that's what I mean by a funding quilt in practice. Now, the job of the consultant team, once you're awarded, is to help craft the projects and identify those that are most ready to go forward. Even then, though, the village is not picking the projects that it wants to win. It's putting forth a slate of projects from which the governor can pick. And I equate it to a coach getting his entire team ready to go to college and play. And I hope that somebody will pick some of those players that fits their piece. The coach gets everyone ready. So the village and the strategic planning process will get all the projects as ready as they can be for the governor to pick from, but ultimately it'll be the governor picking those projects. Are there other questions or comments or other potential projects?
Hello,
Hi, Dan.
how are you?
Good.
Good evening, everyone. I mentioned this in the chat. The district court building is a huge, massive, literally a chunk of concrete right in the middle of Main Street. I feel it greatly restricts the ability to develop something really significant in a large lot right there. Is there any thought, any concept of redeveloping that, renovating it, changing the use, even moving it to some other location so that we can have that large chunk of our downtown property back? I don't think it really adds anything to the life of the village. It only brings a certain kind of traffic. It's not people shopping unless they're going to Dunkin' Donuts or the deli in between court cases. It's a lot of traffic. It's basically police, attorneys, people have been arrested, support staff. Why is that right in the middle of our downtown? So I'm just throwing that more as for thought rather than a specific solution to it. But I really feel that's an impediment to development right in that corner.
Yeah, my answer would be I agree. But the answer is probably no, nothing's going to be done about that because it's, the county level / state level in order to do it. So I don't think so. But I think the revitalization efforts downtown will hopefully engage more of the employees to help support the local restaurants and vendors that are there. Right now, I don't think it's an economic generator for us in any way, shape, or form. But hopefully with more options downtown, we could transform that a little bit. But we agree. I don't want to say this, but I'll say it anyway. I feel the same way about the town of Hempstead's town seat, right? We've got acres of property, commercial property that are off our tax rolls for municipal purposes outside of the village, right? It really doesn't generate any revenue for us or any economic activity.
I agree on that too. It could be anywhere within the town, and here it is right in the middle of our downtown.
Well, that's a good opportunity to bring up to the, if you win, it's a good opportunity to bring up during the conversations of the LPC. But as Deputy Mayor mentioned, it's tough when government, not yours, owns buildings in your downtown. So we have to focus on some of the areas, the underutilized lots, the vacant buildings, the vacant properties, those that are derelict and need to actually be torn down, like the parking garage, and rebuilt. How to really utilize the opportunity of the train station and transit center that bringing people in to get them off the trains into your communities, give them the attraction while simultaneously balancing the community needs. The community needs more housing. The community needs economic opportunity, growth out of the job training center into the job market. We need more performing arts centers and small business locations. So the job of the village and the consultant team at that point in developing the strategic investment plan is to have a well thought out, broad public process and request for projects where people want to invest in the community and help those projects with the gap financing going forward. It's what's important to both the property owners, the community, and where the investment can occur, and finding that unicorn, finding those transformational projects that can leverage that $10 million towards $100 million or more of investment. And the only local dollars that go into that process is whatever public project you select and ask for funding to go for. So the public projects are public. So if you're working on Denton Green or other recreational opportunities, if you're working on the streetscaping piece or the pedestrian safety pieces and crosswalks, that's public dollars from the village. Everything else is private investment that's leveraged with the state investment that comes in. So it's not to raise that's not going to raise your taxes. Well, thank you, Claudia. So what I'm going to do now is turn back on the PowerPoint and just hit a few more things for you. So what are the next steps? So we have the community conversation today, but the public survey is still open. So if you go to that website and share it with your colleagues, with those people that are in your nonprofits, whomever it is that you want to get public support from and get their information on, please go use the public survey, give us more input, more information that we can use to identify the transformational projects that can be used to help secure the monies here in the village. The grant is due in less than 3 weeks. It says 4 o'clock. I always aim for 3 o'clock or less. I do that because I don't trust computers. So I always want to get it in beforehand. But if you're selected, I do want to give you a little bit of the timeline. It's not fast. So if you're selected, the awards will be made between December and January and February upcoming. Then the local planning committee kicks off the last few years in April. And it's a 9-month planning process, really, from April to November, December. The draft is due in December, and the final is due in January. And then the state teams will review your strategic investment plan. That plan will then get shared with other agencies in the state, and a final selection process will occur around April and May when the governor announces who wins the projects and what other $10 million is going to go to in your community. That's April, May of 2026, a year and a half from now. From there, the winners and both the public and the private projects will be provided contracts from the state, and those projects have 2 years to start and 5 years to complete. So it's not a flip of the switch process, but it is a planned process, a publicly driven process next year, and then a funded process the year after. That's why we just want to let you all know that if you're selected in January, it doesn't mean $10 million is coming right away. Okay, so if there are any other questions or comments that you may have? If not, you can go to the website and use the survey, or you can share this to those of you that have interest. We picked Heart again for 2 reasons. One is you have an incredible groundswell support of organizations and community here, that your neighborhoods are all coming together. And we felt that Hempstead, you're empowering and rising together. That's your heartbeat. Geographically, it's also the heart of housing, economic opportunity, arts and culture, recreation, and transportation. All this together shows that you are one community and you're all moving forward, prospering together. Deputy Mayor, I don't know if there's any final words you want to share.
I just want to thank everyone for taking time out in the evening to logging in. We ask that you continue to follow this and support this process in a positive way. That's not to say you should agree with everything that you see in front of you, but let's just kind of, in a respectful way, as a community, come together and move our abilities forward. I think it's a great opportunity. $10 million is not a lot of money in the grand scheme of things, but when you talk about planning and architecture and design and economic development, those are the things, those planning things are the things no one wants to pay for, but they're critical to the process. So this is a good opportunity for us to kind of lay the groundwork for what the next 10 years in the downtown and the village of Hempstead will look like. And I think, my approach to this has always been, downtown, let's let downtown be the generator for our neighborhoods, right? When we talk about the amount of tax dollars that we're talking about potentially raising, that goes to the benefits of the neighborhoods, not just to the downtown. I wouldn't view the downtown as just a separate Hempstead, right? It's one Hempstead. And so the dollars that we're going to generate from these projects will you use to improve the parks and other opportunities in and around the community. So again, thank you for coming out, and thank our partners at LaBerge and our trustee community development agency commissioner there, Danielle. And I hope everybody have a good night. And please follow the process, go to the website, take the survey. The state is watching as well, so they want to see the community's involvement.
And if there are letters of support that anybody wants to write, by all means, please do. Share them with, you can address them to the mayor, or you can get them to Danielle. We're looking for as much support as we can to showcase that this is the village, this is the time, and this is the place, and that the state should be investing in your community. Because there's so much going on here, and there's so much promise in the village. I think this is really a great opportunity for you all. I thank you for taking time out of your evening to join us. And if you have any additional questions, please go to the website and use the survey. There should be an email address there. If not, I can give you my email address right in the chat right now, and you can send things to me directly. Just don't share it with people that are going to spam me.
Or you could call LaBerge. They love calls at like 6 in the morning.
6 o'clock. Normally somebody like 6 o'clock on Friday nights.
Well, that's just me. That's reserved for me calling you. Thank you.
Deputy Mayor,
Yes, sir.
this project is also going to be up under the community benefit agreement with those developers that come in, correct?
Yeah, everything in the downtown that's in the downtown overlay zone, which includes the project area for the DRI, is part of the community benefits agreement. It's all subject to that.
Thank you. Have a good night.
You too.
Well, thank you all.
Everybody.